Should be good enough. Trying to get the video to make sure.
All right.
Do you want it zoomed in more?
That's fine. That's we are going to be looking at Job's prayers. There's three of them, and then mention another one tonight. And then next week we'll be looking at Jeremiah's, and then Daniel, then Jonah, and then Habakkuk. And should be enough to take us all the way up to June when we begin our summer series. And then I think I got a few short ones I want to talk about. So these are the longer ones. And so we'll have a few more lessons after that that deal with some of the short ones. We will start in the 7th chapter tonight with the verses 17 through 21. A lot of you have sat through a study of Job with me. I don't know, maybe it's a couple of years ago now. Time does have a way of getting away, doesn't it? It's a fascinating book to me. It's a book that you got a man that's just really struggling. Life has become extremely hard for this man. And then, of course, he's got three friends, and then there's a fourth man that comes along, and they don't make life any better for him whatsoever. But I want you to think about some things he has to say to God in this particular book. And I guess one of the things that I want you to realize, it's okay to tell God what you're thinking. Sometimes we just don't know what's going on and why it's going on. And sometimes we just don't even know what to think. But you're going to find that Job is going to, especially here in this first prayer, going to tell God what he's thinking. And then you're also going to see a change in the way the man thinks as we look at the two others that are at the end of the book. So let's remind ourselves of what has happened to this man and the situation he finds himself in. First of all, go to the first chapter. And this is so very important as well. How does God describe Job? And shunned evil. Four things. And it's amazing. Really, when you look at it from Satan's perspective, how many other men are like that out there? That's it, isn't it? But God literally says, and he says it twice about this man, this man's blameless. Now, don't think that that means that he's perfect, never did anything wrong whatsoever, but really people cannot point their finger and say, this is what you've done. He is a very good man. He's upright. He's doing the right thing at all times and all places. He fears God, has a tremendous amount of respect for God. He wants to do what God wants done. And one of my favorite chapters in Job is the 31st chapter, and he talks about all the things that he's been doing. And the chapter amazes me because he says, here are the things that I have been doing, and if this has not been the case, then he really put some curse on himself. So he's trying to show that he's serious. Like one of the things, if what I'm saying is not right, may my right arm fall off. Now, you're going to say something like that, you're serious about what you're saying, aren't you? There are several things that he says along that line. And then he shunned evil and didn't play around with it. He stayed as far away from it as he possibly could. How else is Job described there in the early verses?
That's the greatest man.
The greatest man among all the people of the East. Now, think about people thinking about him along that line. Sad thing, people are going to turn on him, aren't they? But at that point and that time, everybody's glad to be around Job. Everybody want to know, what advice have you got to give me? All right, what wisdom do you have for me? This is how people were looking at Job at that time. Well, Satan comes into the picture very early there in chapter 1 and chapter 2. And what did Satan believe about Job? Yeah, he's protected by God. And here's essentially what he's saying. God, if you hadn't been so good to him, he wouldn't be acting this way towards you. And it's all about that what you have done for him has caused him to respond that way. And what's God's response to that? He is going to allow Satan to tempt him. And what's the purpose in that?
Satan, he was a God-fearing.
Yes. Satan has gone to learn this man really is a God-fearing man, a man that really wants to stay as far away from evil as possible. So, in the end, Satan's going to lose, isn't he? He thought he knew what it was all about. Now, let us be honest. There's a lot of people who like to serve God when everything's going good. And then when things fall apart, it's a different story. There are a lot of people that way. I also know that there are a lot of people that for a period of time that's the case and then make their way back. But Job is a man whose whole world falls apart, and he's hanging just as close to God as he possibly can. What did Job lose in that first trial?
7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and many of his servants.
Yeah. And his 10 children. And how did he respond to that? Yeah, the Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. He did. May the name of the Lord be praised, or blessed be the name. This is after losing his possessions, after losing his children, and after losing his servants. Now, he's still got a servant or two that escapes to give him the bad news. But by and large, the majority of them are gone. It's easy to read over that. So easy to read over that. But look what this man's gone through. The only thing I could even begin to compare that today is if you are in your house and there's basically all your possessions inside that house, and say you got kids, and say everything's blown away except you. It's all gone. It's devastating. Absolutely devastating. Now
No,
you,
I don't know how, speaking from experience, when you lose 10 like that,
mhm.
I absolutely don't know how he coped.
I don't know either. And a lot of times, preachers give old Job a hard time. But look what this man has gone through. It's just absolutely amazing that so much. And don't forget, why did it happen?
God allowed it.
Well, God allowed it. But the why is Satan wanted to bring him down. Don't ever forget that. This is because Satan wanted to bring him down. And that's how he's trying to accomplish it.
But God would not let him lay a hand on Job.
Yes. Yes. And so all this happens, and he's going to say, blessed be the name of the Lord. And so Satan's got to go back in front of Job and says, well, he hadn't done it yet. But the problem is, you haven't let me do anything to him. And God says, all right, you can't take his life, but have at it. What did he do? Yeah. Gave him sores from where? Top of the head to the bottom of the feet. And it's described in there that there's oozing out of them. People have looked at it and have thought that very likely he could have had elephantiasis. And that's where your limbs swell up like elephants. So you look at a man's leg, well, when they get that disease, it looks like an elephant leg. So you've gone from that to that just because it's swollen up so bad. So there are a lot of people that believe that's the disease that has come upon him. He can't get any relief. No relief. And I think about this. I've been around several people that's had a bad case of shingles. How do you get relief? I remember there's a gentleman several years ago. I don't think he was ever here, but he was at the East Side building that had it. And Rosemary and I went to his house, and the wife greeted us at the door and said, well, first of all, he says he's got to put some clothes on before you can come in, because just clothes touching his body puts him in pain. And he was miserable, absolutely miserable.
You know, Carter Hill had it, got in his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you get any relief? And if that's the case, when you lay down in bed to go to sleep at night, how are you going to sleep? You're in misery. So Job is in misery. Not only what has happened to those that are around him, to his possessions, but now his own body is in misery. And yet, what does it say about Job? In all of this, he did not sin. There are three friends that are going to comfort him. What's the name of those three fellows? Yep, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. And what is the basic philosophy of these three men? Yep, you're a sinner. I don't know what you've done, but come on out with it. These kinds of things don't happen to somebody unless you are really bad. And so they kept telling him that over and over and over again. Job kept talking about his integrity over and over again. And that's what that 31st chapter I referred to a few moments ago. He's saying, I am a man of integrity. I have tried my best to serve God. Well, there's the background. And this is a story we ought to remind ourselves about quite often. I'm going now to the 7th chapter, verses 17 to 21. It's not a long prayer, but it's part of the thoughts, and he is addressing God here. And he says, what is man that you make so much of him, that you give him so much attention, that you examine him every morning and test him every moment? Will you never look away from me or let me alone even for an instant? If I have sinned, what have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my offenses and forgive my sins? For I will soon lie down in the dust. You will search for me, but I will be no more. I would ask you the question, have you ever thought about talking to God in such a manner? Not really for myself. But I cannot imagine what this man is going through. And I'm not saying that it is a bad thing. And I think it is part of the grieving process that this man is going through with everything that has happened to him. The truth of the matter is, and you see it in these verses, who's he blaming for all these things? He's blaming God, isn't he? Why have you done this to me? And the truth of the matter is, God didn't do it to him. Satan has done that. And so it's a very important lesson in this book. We like to know why. We want an understanding. But we don't know what is happening so many times. And Job had no clue that Satan was behind what was taking place. What is Job wondering about God?
He turned his face from it, maybe.
Okay.
3 times he mentions the question why, and talking in context of his continual presence in his life, in all men's lives.
Yes. Verse 17, what is man that you make so much of him, that you give him so much attention? How would you say that today?
Why are you always here?
Yeah. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I don't want any more. That's what he's trying to say to God. But I also see that there's something there very similar to what the psalmist say later on. What is man that you are mindful of him? Here he's saying that you make so much of him. Why are you paying so close attention to me? And he's asking, why are you bringing all this onto me? He believed that God was examining him when? Every morning, and testing him every moment. Could he get any relief? No. Body is sore, can't get any relief from that. You read in here how that all those people that thought he was the greatest man in the East, now they don't want anything to do with him. He talks about that his own family, his own brothers don't want anything to do with him. So his entire world has fallen apart. And he believes it's all a result of what God has done. And he's just asking, leave me alone. How does he describe God?
He set him as his target.
As a watcher of men. I would ask you, do you think about God like that? That he's just sitting back up there, watching every moment that you make, or every move that you make, just wanting to see, oh, what's he going to do today? How's he going to go wrong? How's he going to slip up? Is that a true picture of God? It's not, is it? And yet, I can say to you, I can understand how that he's thinking that right now. His life is in turmoil right now. All right, Job knew of no sin in his life. And if there was a sin, then he believed that God had what?
Not pardon or forgiveness.
Not pardoned him and not forgiven him. And that's one of the things he does throughout this book. What do you got against me? I don't know of anything I've done wrong. What do you think that I've done wrong? Is there some sin in my life? He's asking God to let me know. At this point, as this is being offered up, what does Job thinks about to happen? Yeah. That's what he thinks the end result's going to be. And so he sees God. He thinks God's brought this on him. He thinks God's watching every moment and every aspect of his life. But he can feel his life ebbing away. There's one passage in there where he talks about that his skin's turning black. He's just in a tremendous amount of misery. There's another passage in there that he talks about that even his breath stinks to anybody that might get close to him. Everything about him just seems to be rotting away.
He's even taking bricks and stuff and scraping himself.
Yes. So I would ask you, and this is more of you knowing the story as well as what's being said right there. How would you sum up Job's feelings towards God at this stage here in chapter 7?
He didn't want to distrust him, but he was having some doubts about what was going on.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. Does he still believe in God? Yes. Does he still trust in God? Does he still think God wants the best for him? Maybe a question in his mind about that. But things are just not what they want to be.
I look at it as being real disappointed in God
Yes.
and searching for that why
Yes.
that I don't understand.
Yes.
Many of us do that today.
Yes. Yeah, this is not just some story way back then. In fact, they say this is the oldest book in the Bible. First one written, Job. But it's still happening today. It's still true today.
It's human nature.
It is.
Question.
It is.
I like verse 19. Mine says, "Nor leave me alone till I swallow my spit." It's like, you don't even give me time to spit.
Mhm.
And
I done that, don't you?
and but you don't, you see my condition, but you don't tell me why. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're here, but you're not telling me why.
He's just looking for understanding, isn't he? And it's not there. I answer that question by saying he feels like he has been singled out unfairly. I think unfair is a very important word there. And you just won't tell me what's wrong.
And Joe, those last verse there, where he said, "I will lay down in the dust and I will be no more,
Mm-hmm.
and you will not find me." You can tell that that's from the Old Testament.
Yes.
That's not the New Testament teaching.
Yes.
Stuff like that. So that's what.
This is one of the things we talked about quite a bit. And Mark brought us some questions about this. There are glimpses of life beyond this life in Job, but here's a instance where when I'm dead, I'm dead. You and I wouldn't begin to say, "You will search for me, but I will be no more." We very much believe, I will be more. This is my physical life. I got a spiritual life that's not going to end. But Job didn't have that thought at that particular moment. I asked this question. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to this or not. But how do you pray to God when you think He has been unfair to you? That's a tough question, isn't it? That's a tough question.
I would have to pray for understanding.
Pray for understanding.
Why? You never know, man.
You know.
Not that-
And Job's not holding back here, is he? He's letting God know what he's thinking and how he's feeling. And I think that that's an important aspect that we need to realize in our own life also. Now, I think you can cross the line. I think that you can become belligerent, rebellious, maybe even condemning of God. So you do have to be careful along that line. But it's all right to tell him what you're thinking. And it's all right to ask why. What did you say?
I think he might have a little bit of self-pity going on right
Well, it may be, but look what he's been through. Look what he's been through. So I asked this question to finish this up here. How do you see God? Do you see him as an angry being ready to harm and destroy you? Or do you see him as a loving Father who is merciful? Now, in the age that we live, it's a lot easier to do that second, isn't it? A lot easier. We realize what God has done for us through Jesus Christ. And we realize that God saw his own son die on the cross. So he understands.
God's ways are so much higher than ours.
Well, that's it.
That you can live a lifetime and never understand
No.
the fortunes of life.
No.
And you just have to trust that verse where it says that if you stay close to him, that everything will work to good.
Yes.
And you don't think of a misfortune as having anything good in it.
Yeah.
But in time, it will.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For those, like you mentioned, we have a complete Bible. And so we have these examples, so many examples that we have that they didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And to remember that God is in control. And just like he was in control of this situation, Job didn't understand that,
No.
but we're blessed in seeing that he
Yes.
actually was.
And are we blessed to have the book of Job? I mean, it helps you to see what is going on behind the scene. Did Job ever find out why? He never did. Never did.
And maybe we're not supposed to know why.
There are some things I am sure that this side of heaven we're not supposed to.
Joe, I heard a preacher preach a sermon. He said, when I was a young Christian, I thought that God was an I got you God.
Mhm.
He stood up there all the time like
Yeah,
this.
uh-huh.
He slept.
Yeah.
He said, but as I got more mature, he said, I knew it was an I got you God.
Mm-hmm.
But he held his hand like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Job is the former at this stage. He believes God just sitting up there just watching him and making every little move and saying, all right, got you this time. And that's not the way that he is. Well, there's a lot of things that's going to transpire. And I am now going to take you all the way over to the 40th chapter. You have these three friends. They all take 3 rounds of trying to rebuke him and trying to get him to say what he has done wrong. And then there's a 4th one comes in and he adds his little bit to it as well. And then finally, and there's what Job has been waiting for all along, he gets to hear God speak. And what Job has done many times in this book, I want to see him face to face. I want to confront him. I want to be in a courtroom and present my case and let him present his case and somebody make a judgment. That's what he's been thinking so much throughout this book. So now he finally gets a little bit of what he wanted. He's not going to get an answer, but he's going to hear God speak. And so in chapter 38, 39, what we find is that there's a whole lot of questions that God is going to fire away at Job. And I'm looking at 39. Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you watch when the doe bears her fawn? Do you count the months till they bear? Who let the wild donkey go free? Will the wild ox consent to serve you? The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully, but they cannot compare with the pinions and the feathers of the stork. Do you give the horse his strength or clothe his neck with a flowing mane? Do you make him leap like a locust, striking terror with his proud snorting? On and on and on and on. He has questions. Questions about the weather, questions about animals like I was just reading. How many answers does Job have? Absolutely zero. Zero. Not a single one. And then God turns to him and he asks this question. Will the one who contends, now I think that's an important part. You think God knows he's upset? No doubt about it whatsoever. Will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? All right, we come to the little short prayer that he has. Chapter 40, and this is verses 3, 4, and 5. I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. Now, the first thing I want you to see, there is a huge change of attitude between chapter 7 and here. I don't know how much time has elapsed, but I do believe it's months. Chapter 7, he's basically shaking his fist at God. And now what's he saying? Yeah. First, I am unworthy. I don't know all these things. I don't know how God has designed this world. There are things we as humans have understood now. I don't know how long people existed before they figured out it takes 9 months to bring a new one into the world. And then I think elephants go over a year, if I remember right. There are other animals, some short amount of time, some a long amount of time. It took people thinking about that, researching that, and studying that to finally learn some things. Isn't it amazing what we've learned about our own human body here in this year 2025? Think about the things today that people can survive because God's allowed us to have knowledge that a few years ago wasn't the case. Not really all that many years ago, is it?
Sure didn't know what DNA was.
No, sure didn't. I just unworthy. He's saying, God, you are far superior to me. Now, does that make the hurt any less? No. But he is realizing that there is someone far superior to me that is in control. Then he said, I put my hand over my mouth. What is he saying? Yeah. I have said too much and I'm not going to say any more. I'm done talking. Again, Job didn't have any answers. And so I asked a minute ago, we answered what happened to Job from the first prayer to this prayer. He realized he's just a lowly man addressing an almighty God. Well, there are some more questions that are going to be asked. I look at verse 8. Would you discredit my justice? In other words, you accusing me of doing wrong? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's? Can you adorn yourself with glory and splendor? On and on and on and on. Again, the questions go. Amazing questions. And again, Job cannot answer a single one of them. So then we come to conclusion of those questions, and Job has gone to talk to God once again in chapter 42, beginning with verse 1 through 6. Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No plan of yours can be thwarted. You ask, who is this that obscures my counsel without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now, and I will speak. I will question you, and you shall answer me. My ears have heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. What did he know about God?
All powerful.
All powerful. You can do all things. You are my creator. You have created every animal that's in this world. You put the sun, the moon, and the stars there. You are the one that's in control. He says, no plan of yours can be thwarted. I ask this question, was Job's story a part of God's plan? I have to say yes. Now, Satan's involved in what's happened to him, but God is still using this story today. He's still teaching people today. He's still trying to bring people closer to him today. God asked Job a question. Who is this that obscures my counsel without knowledge? What is he saying by that?
God's word is light. Follow no other path.
Okay. I'll give you the Joe Mason translation. God said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And he didn't, did he? He knows what he's been through, but no, he's not looking God as the way that he should. So what's Job ready to admit now?
Lack of understanding.
He does say, I have a lack of understanding. I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. I think he's saying I said some things I shouldn't have said. Now, what he has wanted has come to pass. He says his ears have heard of God, and his eyes have seen them. And how does he now look at himself? Yeah, I despise myself. Why is he saying that?
I'm just trying to say, I ought to have known better. God is.
Yeah, I think he's saying I've done some things I ought not do.
Realize who God is.
Yeah, and yes, he realizes God's far superior. God's up there, I'm down here, not even close to one another. And now, because of that, he said that he would do what? Repent. He's saying, I've had the wrong attitude towards God. I changed. He's willing to admit that he is in control. Did Job ever leave God? Can you ever say that he stopped shunning evil? Can you ever say that he stopped being upright? Can you ever say that he no longer feared God? No. But there was some thinking that he did have to change.
Well, even his wife coming there telling him, destroy it.
Yeah.
God died.
Yes. Conclusions. Job has to offer up one more prayer. Who was it for and why? he has to offer up a prayer for his 3 friends. Yeah. And, you know, when people have been really ugly to you, it's kind of hard to pray for them, isn't it? But that's one of the things Jesus taught. Pray for your enemies. Pray for those that persecute you. They weren't nice to Job. Not at all. They made a lot of false accusations against him. But God is saying that you are to pray for them so that he would not deal with them according to their folly.
He realizes too that he sinned against God, and the Bible tells us when we understand that we have sinned against somebody, we're supposed to go to that person. That's for every Christian.
Yeah.
You know, we're supposed to go to that person and make things right. And that's what he's doing. He's repenting and he's making things right.
I want you to ask yourself this question. Pray for these guys so that God will not deal with them according to their folly. How many does it say, go get him? It's tempting, isn't it? It's tempting. They brought misery into my life. God says, pray for them. And he did. And then I ask you, how does the book conclude?
Restored Job's office.
Yes,
God vindicated Job before his friends.
he did. Those friends knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Job was a good man, that he was a man of integrity. The flocks and the herds, they returned. He was given 10 more children. That don't make up for the 10 that was gone, does it? But he did find enjoyment in the children. Final question. Is it proper to ask God for understanding when we do not understand why things are happening to us? Absolutely. But what attitude must we have? Humble. God-fearing. You're in control. And I will accept your will.
God will answer the prayer.
Yes.
That'll be the answer we want.
Yes. I always enjoy, that's a quick, no more than 45 minutes going through the book of Job. But you see the prayers there and you see some things about that man. All right. Again, next week, we'll be looking at Jeremiah. That's the crying preacher. And he had a lot to shed tears on. Thank you for being here tonight. How are you tonight? Good. Uh-huh. Howdy. Well, thank you. How are you?
Good, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing real well. Yep. Hi. Thank you. I have. No, back on December the